Leon Edwards shocked the world a couple of weeks back with a head kick knockout for the ages. Most MMA personalities were in awe of the finish, but as it so often is the rule, you cannot please everyone. One of those who was less than impressed was lightweight challenger Islam Makhachev. Today we're discussing Islam's claims that Leon Edwards got lucky during his welterweight world title fight with Kamaru Usman. Stay with us. Let's get straight into it. What did the Russian have to say? Islam Makhachev goes to war with Charles Oliveira next month with the UFC lightweight world title on the line, and this week the Sambo expert has taken time out of his busy training schedule to give his thoughts on the recent world title fight in the division above the one in which he plies his trade. Of course, Leon Edwards bagged the win after being behind for so much of the fight and has been loudly applauded for the heart and determination he showed to stay in and eventually win the fight. However, Islam Makhachev has a different take on how the fight played out, suggesting Leon got lucky with his incredible knockout. The Makhachev man said, "Edwards got lucky because Usman beat him all 5 rounds almost." And while that is probably the case, championships are fought over 25 minutes, not 24, so whatever happens before a knockout is completely irrelevant. Makhachev went on to give detail of how Usman had dominated the fight up until that point, before giving his predictions on the probable trilogy fight, which will almost certainly take place early next year. He said, quote, "When they're going to fight again in a rematch, 100% I think Kamaru is going to beat him because Edwards has the same problem, always with wrestling guys. We wonder what's gotten up Islam's nose. Most people are united in the thought that Edwards set the win up superbly by distracting Usman with throwaway punches. But you can't please everyone, right?" Islam has given his thoughts on his own upcoming fight next. Stick around to hear about it. As we all well know, Islam Makhachev will go head-to-head with Charles Oliveira next month for the vacant lightweight belt, but Islam believes that Charles is worried about him. The pair will do battle at Abu Dhabi at UFC 280 at the end of October, but Makhachev thinks that Oliveira was trying to dodge him by calling out Conor McGregor. He wasn't. He was simply trying to get some of those pay-per-view dollars. It is thought Oliveira agreed to fight the Russian on the condition that somewhere down the line he gets his money spinner with McGregor. And why not? The top of the fight game is a pretty short window. Why shouldn't he cash in at the world's best lightweight? Of course, Makhachev doesn't see it that way, claiming that Oliveira doesn't actually think he can win. He said, quote, "When he beat Michael Chandler, he never said my name, you know? He says Dustin Poirier, but he never says my name. Nate Diaz, he called out Nate Diaz. He called out Conor McGregor many times, but never said my name." Sounds more like Islam is salty at not getting the recognition. The 22-1 Russian brawler went on to say, "He knows it's gonna be. I am a hard fight for everybody because I always have the same plan. Take them down, hold them there. I am a terrible fight for everybody. Everybody knows this." Do you guys agree with Islam? Next up, Charles has his own point of view, unsurprisingly. It's safe to say that both men fancy themselves going into the lightweight title fight in the UAE in a few weeks' time. Contrary to Makhachev's beliefs, Charles is actually supremely confident going into the fight and even predicts a first-round win. Incredibly, the Brazilian has 19 finishes in the UFC and most of any fighter in history. So if he predicts a win, who are we to argue? With 11 wins in a row to back it up, he has a reason to be confident considering some of the people who have actually succumbed to his skills in the octagon. Speaking last week, Oliveira made his prediction on how the fight will play out, saying, quote, "He'll try to take me down not through my legs, but through my hips," before suggesting that Makhachev will try to isolate and nullify the legs. You would think Oliveira has done his homework and studied many of Islam's previous fights, so he might have a point here. He went on to say, quote, "He won't come dying to submit me, but rather to wear me out." But man, like I said, I'm not worried about what Makhachev can bring. I'm worried about what Charles can take there. You can be sure it won't go past the first round. Wow. The former champ then claimed that fans can expect him to go forward in the fight, also reminding people that he possesses knockout power, which he clearly does. Paddy the Baddie has had his say on how the fight will play out, so stick around. One of the UFC's top prospects and popular, Paddy Pimblett, has given his thoughts on who comes out victorious when Islam and Charles go to war next month. Like Charles, Pimblett is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, so knows a thing or two about fighting on the ground, which is how this one is largely expected to play out. And Paddy actually thinks Oliveira has been in there with stiffer opposition in the past, and has suggested that when it comes down to it, the Brazilian will, quote, "have too much for Makhachev." He said, quote, "It's gonna be a big fight, but I think Charles is gonna have too much for him. Of course, this is a big shout as Islam has only lost one fight across his entire career so far, but the baddie believes Charles has what it takes to actually finish Khabib's buddy, saying, quote, "I think Charles will finish him in like 3 something like that. He's been through a much higher caliber of opponents, competed against a lot more dangerous fighters, and he's come through the other side, and I just think he's got too many tools in his arsenal for Islam to deal with." However, Makhachev won't just run through and is currently riding a long win streak himself, but whatever happens, somebody's winning streak has to go. Who do you guys see coming out on top once fight night rolls around? Let us know below. Another lightweight contender has also given his predictions. Stay with us. Kazakhstan's Rafael Fiziev is now on a tear of his own. Last time out, he beat former lightweight champion Rafael dos Anjos in the Rafael Derby, which is no mean a feat in itself, and he has given his thoughts on how he sees the lightweight title fight playing out, something which he has vested interest in. Fiziev believes it'll be a pretty close fight when it comes down to it, saying, quote, "I think 60%, 60-40% this Islam win." Of course, he isn't completely writing Oliveira off, which a lot of people are, quite shockingly. Oliveira has turned himself into a legitimate killer in the past few years after an inconsistent start to life in the UFC, which a lot of people now use against him. Fiziev went on to say, quote, "I think, this is my opinion, I think he has more ground game. He's like more stronger. I think it's more like his game, like Khabib style. He wrestles with Khabib every day, brother." I mean, has he never watched Charles Oliveira? Yes, Makhachev's wrestling is superb, but Charles has proven time and time again that he can submit pretty much anyone from anywhere. Admittedly, he did acknowledge that Oliveira is a gangster also, saying, "He's dangerous all seconds in the fight. We cannot wait for this one. Who do you guys got?" And finally, Michael Chandler has given his thoughts. For a man who is coming into a world title fight as the underdog, there is plenty of love for Charles Oliveira from his peers. Chandler was discussing who will come out on top when Oliveira meets Makhachev at UFC 280 and was not sitting on the fence whatsoever. Chandler, who was knocked out by Oliveira for the vacant lightweight title back in May 2021, is categorically backing his former opponent. Speaking at UFC London recently, Chandler was asked who he sees winning the, again, vacant belt, saying, quote, "Charles Oliveira. I think Oliveira gets the job done." Iron Mike went on to claim that one day Islam will more than likely win a world title, as he is that good, but from his point of view, quote, "There should be no reason why he should ever be a favorite in that fight against Charles Oliveira." I mean, you can see where he's coming from, right? Chandler that encouraged people to put some respect on Charles Oliveira's name, and it's about time people did, to be fair. The man holds the record for the most stoppages of all time, so there's not much else he can do to convince people at this point. What do you guys think? As usual, thank you so much for dropping in on today's video, and remember to tune in again next time when we will be discussing all sorts of other cool bits and pieces. And why not do us a solid by sharing today's video with any MMA fans you might know of? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye guys!